I spent 10 years bleeding for a man the system told me to save. Only to realize the real villain wasn't him. It was the thing that trafficked me into his world. The day I sent my own husband to the execution platform was the day I finally chose myself and broke the rules of fate. For years after marrying Shen Yuchen, I finally found a way to return home. The system told me that as long as Shen Yuchen married someone else, I could leave this world. So I stopped being jealous and graciously tried to match him with his beloved. I even let Shen Yuchen demote me from wife to concubine. At first, Shen Yuchen praised me for being understanding. But as he watched me personally prepare his wedding, he frowned and asked, "Lin Wani, how can you still be so happy when I'm about to marry someone else?" I didn't answer. I only retrieved the hair comb I had gifted him years ago. Amidst the loud gongs and drums on the night of the wedding, Shen Yuchen seemed to sense something. He suddenly ran barefoot through the wind to find me. By that time I had already set foot on the road home. When Shen Yuchen pushed the door open, Bai Chun was feeding me medicine. Seeing him return, Bai Chun quickly set down the medicine bowl and reminded him softly, "Marquis, the lady's old injury has flared up again." This injury was left from 4 years ago, when I shielded Shen Yuchen from an arrow. But he didn't pay attention to her words. Instead, he grabbed my wrist urgently. "Wani, there's something I need your help with. Su Jingyao is gravely injured and near death. Your heart's blood is pure and full of energy. Let me take some to feed her, will you?" I only felt it was absurd and shook my head. "If she's sick, see a doctor. Why take my blood?" Shen Yuchen's face immediately darkened. He seized my wrist and said coldly, "Back then when I was about to die on the battlefield, barely clinging to life, you cut your wrist and fed me your heart's blood. That was how I survived. Your heart's blood has the power to bring the dead back to life. Just a little could save a life, yet you refuse. Lin Wani, when did your heart become so cruel?" Before I could speak, he forcefully held me down, pulled out a dagger from his chest, and swiftly cut my wrist. Watching the blood flow, his expression finally softened a bit. "Wani, I know it hurts, but Su Jingyao is my lifesaver. I can't watch her die. Please bear it for a while." The pain in my chest was severe. The old arrow wound I had taken for him ached faintly again, spreading through my entire body. Shen Yuchen, however, was completely oblivious. He only instructed me to rest well, then left hurriedly, joyfully holding the bowl full of my blood. He walked so urgently that he didn't even notice that my wrist was still bleeding. The blood soaked through the bedding, even bringing tears to Bai Chun's eyes. Suddenly, I couldn't help wondering what it would be like if this were modern times, if my mom and dad were with me. Mom would definitely hold me protectively, and dad would beat Shen Yuchen up until he ran away. They wouldn't bear to see me suffer like this. I looked down at my hand, suddenly overwhelmed with sobs, not because I was bullied, but because I desperately wanted to leave ancient times and go home. At that moment, an electronic voice I had not heard in 5 years suddenly sounded in my mind. "Host, sorry. The upgrade took some time. The task is completed. Do you want to leave this world and go home?" 9 years ago, I had just graduated from high school when I was inexplicably bound by a system. It transported me to ancient times and told me that if I wanted to go home, I had to complete a mission. My task was to redeem Shen Yuchen and help him become a Marquis. When I first appeared, Shen Yuchen was still in dire straits. He was an illegitimate child of the Marquis household. After his mother's death, his father wanted to bring him home, but old Madame Shen, despising his mother for being a courtesan, refused to acknowledge him as her grandson and drove him out of the house. At that time, Shen Yuchen was still just a teenager, fainted from hunger by the roadside, and it was I who picked him up. I provided him with shelter from the elements, fed and clothed him, and painstakingly raised this boy who was 3 years younger than me. Shen Yuchen wanted to study martial arts, but there wasn't enough money at home. So I got up early every day and went around the streets selling sweet water to save up his tuition. That night, when I handed him the coins, seeing my hands full of wrinkles from overwork, his eyes suddenly turned red. He straightened his back and solemnly vowed, "Sister, I will protect you forever in this life." Shen Yuchen was a martial arts genius. He could wield a red-tasseled spear with great skill. Later, he went to join the army in the northern desert, and I followed him there. While he earned military merit on the battlefield, I was in the city selling sweet water. On the day Shin Yuchen got separated from the main force, everyone gave up on him. It was I who traversed the sand dunes on foot and found him under the poplar tree. He was dehydrated and I had no water pouch. I could only feed him with my blood. Then I carried him and walked arduously through the vast desert. After waking up, he never called me sister again. He stubbornly addressed me as Wani. The way he looked at me grew increasingly ambiguous. After his great victory and being granted a title, he held my hand and confessed his deep feelings. Even though my heartstrings were stirred, I shook my head and refused. Yuchen, I can't always be by your side. I come from a very distant place, and one day I must go back. I saved Shen Yuchen 3 times, accompanied him as he rose, and helped him reclaim the Marquis household. On the day he finally became Marquis, my task was completed, and all I wanted was to go home to find my parents. But the system suddenly disappeared. No matter how I summoned it, I couldn't get in touch. I took a year to accept the fact that I was left in ancient times. Shin Yuchen brought me to the Marquis residence. His affection was bold and passionate, becoming the only vivid color in my gray life. Thus, when he proposed to me, I agreed. At that time, he presented his true heart to me, his eyes full of tenderness and affection. But after Su Jingyao appeared, his heart instantly changed. Su Jingyao was a relative of old Madame Shun. She had once pleaded for Shen Yuchen when he was expelled from the Marquis household, even giving him a white steamed bun. She was his pure dream girl. He remembered only Su Jingyao's single meal of kindness, but forgot the countless meals I had made for him. Host, do you want to leave this world and return home? Yes. I almost answered without thinking. I want to go home right now. But the system replied. You and Shen Yuchen are already married, creating a bond that cannot be broken. I hesitated. What about a divorce? Can I go back if we get divorced? No. Only if Shen Yuchen marries someone else can you leave. The system pondered a moment, then asked. But host, I have witnessed the years of emotions between you and Shen Yuchen. How can you possibly bear for him to marry another? I looked at the scars on my wrist, lowered my eyes and curled my lips into a smile. How could I possibly be reluctant? I truly am very willing. The next day, old Madame Shen suddenly summoned me to her room to talk. When I arrived, Su Jingyao was nestled in the old lady's arms, and Shen Yuchen was handing her the pastries I had made. Upon seeing me, Shen Yuchen withdrew his hand and pursed his lips. Wani, there's something I need to discuss with you. Jingyao has a heart condition. Although she narrowly escaped death this time, the doctor says she doesn't have much time left. Her only wish is to marry me. Can you help me fulfill her wish? As soon as he finished speaking, Su Jingyao began coughing violently. Wani, although I have always admired the Marquis, I never intended to come between you two. It's just that I'm about to die. Could you lend me the Marquis for a few days? After I'm gone, you can still have him back. Her tears fell like rain, making her look even more pitiful. Wani, I beg you to fulfill the wish of a dying person. As she spoke, her knees seemed to give way as if she were about to kneel before me. Old Madame Shun and Shen Yuchen stopped her from either side. The old lady frowned at me coldly. Lin Wani, your family background isn't good, and you're not young anymore. If Yuchen weren't considering old times, you would only be fit to be a concubine. You've held the title of the Marquis' wife for 2 years. It's time to return it to Su Jingyao. Yuchen will write you a letter of divorce and let you be a concubine in the Marquis household. Do you object? Shen Yuchen looked somewhat moved, as if struggling to speak. But Su Jingyao gently tugged his sleeve, and he finally said, My grandmother's wishes align with my own. Wani, I know you've always liked to fight for your ideals, but in matters of life and death, can you? Before he could finish speaking, I cheerfully agreed. Okay. Shin Yuchen was stunned. What did you say? I even smiled at him. I have no objections. I had originally been pondering how to make him marry someone else. Now I didn't need to say a word and things could work out smoothly. I was too delighted to object. Shin Yuchen's expression was complicated. After a moment he nodded. Your magnanimity is a good thing. Old Madame Shan said that since I had been married and had experience, I should help organize the wedding for Shin Yuchen and Su Jingyao. I gladly agreed. In the following days, Shen Yuchen found time to see me, still telling me that after Su Jingyao's death, I would still be his wife. I merely smiled, urging him to go keep Su Jingyao company instead. Shen Yuchen was slightly taken aback. After taking a few steps, he suddenly turned back. Wani, it's been some days since you last prepared peach syrup for me. He had a bad throat. In the past, I made peach syrup daily to soothe it. But recently, I've been too busy planning his wedding. Let's talk about it later. The wedding date was set for the 6th of the next month. I was more dedicated to this wedding than my own, handling everything personally. The people in the manor called me crazy, willing to demote myself to concubine. Some said that Shen Yuchen had grown tired of me, and that to stay in the Marquis residence, I had no other choice. Bai Chun stomped her feet angrily. A bunch of snobbish fools. Lady Concubine Lin, how can you let them talk about you like that? Thinking about going home filled me with unstoppable joy. I waved her over. Come with me. I unlocked a drawer and opened it. Inside were all the valuables I had collected over the years. I handed the key to Bai Chun. If I'm not around anymore, all these things will be yours. Once she retrieved her indenture and had some money, Bai Chun would be set for life. No worries at all. However, she misunderstood my words and asked me in horror. Concubine Lin, are you planning to take your own life? I shook my head. It's not about taking my own life. Just returning to a very distant place. As soon as I finished speaking, something suddenly fell outside the door. The shadow of Shen Yuchen was cast across it by the wind lamp. I didn't know how long he had been standing there or how much he had heard. He pushed the door open, bringing in a gust of cold wind. He grabbed my wrist and asked solemnly, Lin Wani, what were you just saying? What do you mean by returning to a distant place? Where are you planning to go? Seeing his anxious expression, I smiled gently and subtly withdrew my hand from his grasp. I was just teasing Bai Chun. Did you really take it seriously, Marquis? He stared at me intently, as if trying to judge whether I was telling the truth. After a long moment, he suddenly lifted my chin and chuckled lightly. Indeed, Wani is now my concubine. How could a concubine leave so easily? Since Wani can't even leave the Marquis residence now, how could she go far? He gently caressed my cheek with his thumb, his voice softening a bit. Are you upset with me? It's my fault. I've neglected you recently. I'll stay with you tonight. But just as he finished speaking, Su Jingyao's maid arrived hurriedly. Marquis, my lady is feeling uneasy. Please come quickly. Hearing this, Shen Yuchen immediately released me. Wani, I'll be right back. I promised to return tonight. I chuckled softly. Go listen to Miss Su's uneasiness. It's fine if you don't come back. His steps faltered as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he remained silent. That night, I extinguished the candle early and went to bed. Bai Chun became anxious again. Concubine Lin, why don't you wait for the Marquis? He might come back later. I pulled the quilt up and lay on my side. He won't come back. In the past, whenever he went to see Su Jingyao, he would also say he'd be right back. I believed him and waited from dusk till dawn, but the bed beside me remained cold. That night, I had a beautiful dream where my parents held me tightly. Half awake, I heard Bai Chun angrily cursing outside. That damn Marquis lied to my concubine Lin again. I smiled slightly, turned over and continued to sleep. I was going home soon, so who cared about him? I focused on ensuring that Shen Yuchen and Su Jingyao's wedding went smoothly, but unexpectedly, something went wrong within a couple of days. Shen Yuchen heard that there was an herb called soul-returning grass, growing on the cliffs outside the capital, which could prolong life. To let Su Jingyao live a few more days, he sent people to search for it. However, no one found it. Annoyed by their incompetence, Shen Yuchen decided to go to the cliffs himself. As a result, he didn't find the herb and ended up falling off the cliff, injuring himself quite badly. Fortunately, the wounds were superficial and wouldn't delay the wedding, which allowed me to breathe a sigh of relief. Old Madame Shun said he was injured and needed someone to take care of him. She mentioned that Su Jingyao, being a delicate lady from a noble family, couldn't handle such tasks. So she left Shen Yuchen to me. Bai Chun was changing his bandages while I arranged freshly picked red plums in a vase. Shen Yuchen frowned, somewhat dissatisfied. Wani, every time I got hurt before, you would personally help me. Even if I had just a small bump or bruise, you would worry. But today, why do you seem so indifferent? You even have the mind to arrange flowers. I lifted my head from the blossoms. What did you just say? Shin Yuchen was momentarily speechless, then angrily said, I got hurt. Why don't you care at all? I rolled up my sleeve, pointing at the new scar on my wrist from a few days ago, quietly watching him. Shin Yuchen avoided my gaze, slowly lowering his head. I didn't mean it like that. It's just that Jingyao's situation was urgent. His voice grew softer, as if he didn't know how to justify himself. That night, we lay in bed fully clothed. Shin Yuchen rested beside me, and he carried the scent of hibiscus, the fragrance Su Jingyao often used. As the night grew colder and the windows closed, the scent became even stronger. Suddenly, Shin Yuchen wrapped his arm around my waist, resting his head on my shoulder. His voice was hoarse. Wani. As he spoke, he reached to untie my belt, whispering in my ear. Let's have a child. The moment the fragrance filled my nose, nausea surged. I tried to hold it in but eventually couldn't. Covering my chest, I dry heaved violently. Shin Yuchen panicked and tried to soothe my back, but as soon as his hand touched me, I retched even harder. He awkwardly withdrew his hand, looking shocked. Wani, are you rejecting my touch? I pushed open the window, gasping for fresh air. The night breeze swept away the hibiscus scent, and the moonlight flooded the garden like silent water. I finally calmed down and gently patted my chest. I'm not feeling well. I'm afraid I can't serve the Marquis tonight. Perhaps the Marquis should go find Miss Su. The drifting clouds half covered the moon, and half of Shin Yuchen's face was hidden in shadow. His voice trembled slightly. Do you love me so much that you don't want me to feel uncomfortable? Or have you stopped loving me, and are willing to push me to another woman? I handed him his outer garment. The Marquis may guess whatever he wishes. Miss Su is your rightful wife. Shin Yuchen didn't take the garment. He lowered his eyes to look at me, speaking with difficulty. Don't call me Marquis. You used to call me Yuchen. He cupped my face, leaning down as if to kiss me. But before his lips reached mine, I clutched my chest and retched again. He stared blankly, then as if realization dawned, the disappointment in his eyes vanished. He asked excitedly, Wani, are you pregnant? It was impossible. My monthly cycle had just started a few days ago. But Shin Yuchen insisted the nausea proved I was pregnant, and he sent for a doctor overnight. After checking my pulse, the doctor shook his head. Concubine Lin is simply sensitive to strong scents. She is not pregnant. His hopes shattered. Shin Yuchen dismissed the doctor in disappointment. That night, he refused to leave and insisted on squeezing into the same bed with me. He held me through the quilt, his voice muffled. Wani, the way you looked at me just now. It was as if you were looking at a stranger. It made my heart ache. Jingyao's situation has wronged you, but her mother died early and her father doesn't care for her. Just like what I went through. Seeing her is like seeing my past self, so can we help her? She doesn't have many days left. Let's make her last days happy. It will be a blessing for us too. Okay? He kept talking endlessly, asking me again and again if it was okay. Annoyed by his persistence, I casually replied, okay. Only then did Shin Yuchen finally stop talking. In the following days, Shin Yuchen couldn't find me. He asked the servants, where is concubine Lin? She is reviewing the wedding procedures. Another replied, she is deciding on the banquet menu. Another, she is counting the guests. After a few days, Shin Yuchen finally saw me. I presented several pieces of fabric to him, asking which pattern he wanted for his wedding robe. He didn't look at the patterns. Instead, he frowned deeply. It's clearly my wedding. Why are you more concerned than I am? Seeing my smiling face, his frown deepened. Wani, I'm about to marry someone else. How can you smile so happily? Thinking of how the day to go home was getting closer, I felt elated and didn't argue with him. We are fulfilling Miss Su's wish. The Marquis said this is called accumulating blessings. So of course I'm happy. Shin Yuchen pressed his lips together, unable to refute me. After a while, he took an ivory hairpin from his pocket and held it out in front of me. Do you like it? The ivory hairpin was carved with bamboo branches, warm and exquisite. I nodded and praised it. It's very beautiful, he said softly. I remember you once said, after returning from a banquet, that you admired Princess Chin's ivory hairpin and liked it very much. Recently I happened to acquire a new ivory hairpin. Normally, such a precious item should be given to my legitimate wife. Shen Yuchen pressed his lips again, looking down at me. But if you ask me for it, I might make an exception and give it to you. He seemed to really want me to beg him for it. But I simply shook my head. No need. Marquis, keep it for Miss Su. His brows furrowed deeper. Linwani, don't blame me for not reminding you. This hairpin is worth a fortune. I smiled slightly. But I can't take it back to the modern world, so what's the use? Hearing that I had no intention of asking for it, Shen Yuchen withdrew the ivory hairpin and left with a flick of his sleeve. After taking a few steps, I called out to him. Marquis. He immediately stopped, slowly turning back, a faint smile appearing on his lips with a hint of expectation in his eyes. I raised the pieces of fabric. Marquis, you haven't answered yet. Which pattern should be used for the wedding attire? His face fell instantly. He pointed randomly at one and left in a huff. Soon, the news spread throughout the entire residence. Shen Yuchen gave the ivory hairpin to Su Jingya. From that day on, he never stepped into my courtyard again. Everyone said I had completely lost favor. I, on the other hand, was quite content with my freedom. Taking advantage of my free time, I needed to settle everything before going home. I retrieved Bai Chun's contract, sold off the farms and shops I had invested in before, and donated all the money to the residential care home on the outskirts of the capital. After doing all this, I leaned on the windowsill, counting the days on my fingers until Shen Yuchen's wedding. A gentle breeze stirred the pool of silver moonlight like rippling water shining with pear blossoms. A feeling of impending liberation welled up in my chest. Just then the door was kicked open, and Shen Yuchen entered with a solemn face. As soon as he entered, he asked me angrily, Linwani, when did you become so despicable? Behind him, Bai Chun was being held by the servants. I was puzzled. What happened? Shen Yuchen's face was cold. Su Jingyao said your maid goes out every day. There must be something suspicious. So she had her searched. They found she was carrying a whole bag of silver. His expression twisted with disdain. How dare your maid steal so much money? It must have been under your instruction. Is the household not providing you enough food and clothing? What do you need so much money for? If it weren't for Jingyao's timely discovery, who knows how much the Marquis residence would have been emptied by you? He pinched my chin and demanded coldly, explain yourself. How much have you stolen these days, and what have you done with the money? I found it laughable. So this was their logic. The household accounts are managed by old Madame Shen. Has she said anything is missing? Shen Yuchen hesitated. No, she hasn't. But maybe she hasn't noticed yet. I looked straight at him. Back then, to help you gather tuition, I sold sweet water from dawn till dusk, even when life was difficult. I never thought of stealing. Why would you think I stole now? Shen Yuchen faltered, his face slowly turning red. Maybe because you went from wife to concubine, you felt humiliated and you were unwilling, so. He knew all along that being demoted from wife to concubine was disgraceful. Yet even knowing that, he still trampled on me, still chose Su Jingyao. I laughed softly. The silver you gave me after you became Marquis, I used it to buy shops. The shops were profitable, so I bought estates. The money came from selling those shops and estates, and some from pawning clothes. I had Bai Chun take the money to the women and children at the residential care home. Shen Yuchen looked stunned. His face slowly turned pale. If you don't believe me, you can ask the pawn shop. Before I could finish, he suddenly grabbed my sleeve tightly. Linwani, why are you suddenly doing all this? I brushed off his hand, lowering my eyes. It was too dangerous to tell the truth. Marquis, I just feel sorry for the women and children at the care home. He stared at me, not knowing whether to believe me. After a while, he shook his head. In the past, when we depended on each other, you told me your hometown was far away. You said you couldn't get there by carriage or by boat. After I first confessed to you, you said that one day you would go back, and once you did, you would never see me again. Last time, you even told Bai Chun you wanted to go to a faraway place. He held my shoulders, his voice tense. Wani, are you planning to go home? The bright moon rose high, and the scent of lotuses filled the courtyard. I fought the urge to vomit and replied calmly. Marquis, I can't even leave the Marquis residence now. How could I go home? He seemed lost in thought, and after a moment he released me. He gently caressed my cheek. That's true. Wani, I'll have someone follow you. These days, stay obediently in the Marquis residence. Whether as a wife or a concubine, you are still my person. As for this money, I'll keep it safe for you. Life and death are fated. Wealth is in heaven's hands. The lives of those women and children depend on their fortune. It's enough that you have me in your heart. No need to worry about others. I closed my eyes. He was the truly despicable one. On the day we married 4 years ago, I gave Shinyuchin a hair comb. In this dynasty, when a couple marries, they exchange combs they personally crafted. I was not skilled in woodworking, and to make that boxwood comb, I added several new scars to my hands. I made 3, choosing the finest one to give to him. I heard that Su Jingyao made him a new comb from the best sandalwood. I was no longer the Marquis's wife, so I said calmly, I'll return the comb the Marquis gave me. Later, I shall trouble the Marquis to return the old comb to me as well. Once given, how could it be taken back? Without thinking, Shen Yuchen directly refused. Whether it's the sandalwood comb or the boxwood comb, I want both. But he was destined not to have it both ways. The next day, Shen Yuchen married for the second time. Over the years, he had gathered significant military power, made connections with many officials in court, and many came to the Marquis residence to offer their congratulations. Moreover, old Madame Shen invited her maternal family, making this wedding far more grand than the one 4 years ago. In the midst of the clamor of gongs and drums on the night of the bridal chamber, I was more excited than Shen Yuchen. I quietly slipped the deed into Bai Chun's sleeve and asked the system, they've already completed the wedding ceremony. When can I go home? The system replied, wait a little longer. I was restless watching the guests in the front courtyard disperse. I couldn't help but ask the system again, how long must I wait? The system told me to go to the abandoned garden in the back courtyard. There was a low dry well there. As long as you jump into the dry well, you can go home. Shen Yuchen had assigned a nanny to follow me closely. At this moment, I didn't care about anything else. I pushed open the door and headed straight to the abandoned garden. Madam, where are you going so late? The nanny blocked my way, looking exhausted. I pushed her aside and lifted my skirt as I ran toward freedom. The nanny fell on her backside, and ignoring her pain, she hurriedly called a servant. Quickly, go tell the Marquis. There's something unusual with Madam. By the time I reached the abandoned garden, a group of people was already following me. Lin Wani. I heard Shen Yuchen's voice. The crowd automatically made way. The man who should have been in the bridal chamber was now running toward me with his long hair loose, barefoot. Lin Wani, what are you doing? I stood at the edge of the dry well and told him the truth this time. I'm going home. Shen Yuchen's figure swayed. He asked in shock. Is it that faraway place? Yes. I felt more at ease than ever before. Silently, the west wind rose. Withered branches were covered with cold frost. Tonight, the starry river was splendid with moonlight. As a boat, it could sail thousands of miles. I seemed to see my parents waving at me. They would clear away the snow left by winter, and warm my years with their constant chatter. Shen Yuchen, goodbye forever. After saying that, I closed my eyes and resolutely jumped into the dry well. Pain engulfed me. It felt as if my leg bones had shattered. When I opened my eyes, I saw only the pitch-black well beneath me. When I looked up, there was a small patch of sky framed by the stone mouth above. I didn't see my parents. I only saw Shen Yuchen's hand reaching out to me. I thought I was mistaken, so I blinked and opened my eyes again. I was still wearing ancient clothes. My hair was still tied in an ancient bun. I was still in ancient times. Didn't you say jumping into the dry well would take me home? I asked the system. No one answered. A chill spread from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. I looked up tentatively. What met my eyes was Shen Yuchen's face looming over the well. System? Are you there? I automatically blocked out Shen Yuchen's words, desperately trying again and again to contact the system. 9 years ago, the system suddenly appeared. 5 years ago, the system suddenly disappeared. This time it vanished again without warning. No matter how I summoned it, it never appeared. Even though I did exactly as it said, I still couldn't go home. The dry well had long been without water, but despair was drowning me. Amidst the conflict between extreme joy and crushing loss, I fainted. Before losing consciousness, I wondered, if the next time I opened my eyes, would it finally be the 21st century? When I woke up, I had become the laughingstock of the entire capital. The news of me jumping into a well on my husband's wedding night spread everywhere. The noble women said I was indeed fit to be a concubine, pretending to be indifferent while secretly using such cheap tricks. When Su Jingyao came to see me, she sighed deeply. "Wani, why did you do it? Pretending to leave to make Yuchen worried, and then breaking your leg, leaving me both helpless and amused. You said your home was far away, but we sent someone to investigate. It turns out you're clearly from the capital." She smiled gently, as if consoling a foolish child. "I know you wanted to make him insecure and control him, but such little tricks are easily exposed. Why deceive him and yourself?" She gave Shen Yuchen a playful look. "But you really did scare him. He ran out barefoot that night. Still, who jumps into a dry well thinking they can go home?" Hearing this, Shen Yuchen showed a hint of embarrassment, as if even he realized how absurd his actions had been. He pressed his lips together, then attempted to defend himself. Wani kept telling me she came from a faraway place. I believed her, and in a moment of panic He didn't finish. After Su Jingyao left, Shen Yuchen sat by my bedside, holding my hand through the blanket. A smile slowly emerged on his lips. "I originally wanted to scold you for causing trouble, but then I thought, you probably did it out of love for me." He spoke as though he understood everything. "You ignored me deliberately for a while. Then you made such a dramatic scene. Wasn't it just to test your place in my heart? Now that I left my bride on our wedding night to search for you, are you satisfied?" He chuckled softly. "I won't hold this against you. And Jingyao is generous. She doesn't blame you either. You must be grateful. Serve your husband and the main wife well. Don't be so willful anymore. Jingyao doesn't have many days left. You should consider her too." I sat in a daze, not answering a word. Thinking I was too ashamed to speak, he left without saying more. After the door closed, Bai Chun, her eyes swollen like walnuts, exclaimed sadly, "You didn't lie. You sold your estates and shops, and even gave me your deed. You were ready to leave." She squatted by my bed, her voice trembling. "Although I don't know why you jumped into the well, you must have had a reason." "Yes. Why did I jump into the well? Because the system told me that doing so would let me go home. Yet here I was still trapped in this narrow world." Suddenly a cold fear swept through me. Was my whole life going to revolve around a man? My life shouldn't be like this. My college entrance exam scores were excellent. I had been admitted to an 8-year clinical medicine program at my dream school. Before coming to ancient times, I had planned a trip with friends, looking forward to university, to a bright future. Now my life was so barren that I could see its end at a glance. I dismissed Bai Chun and sat up straight. I tried again and again to contact the system. I have to go back. I can't stay numb in this era. When the system finally responded, I seized the moment as though grabbing the last floating plank in a storm. "I did exactly as you said. Why haven't I been able to go back?" My voice trembled with urgency. The system was silent for a moment, long enough to feel like an eternity. Then it answered, "Because I have detected Shen Yuchen's ambition." My heart froze. "What ambition?" The system replied calmly, as if discussing something trivial. "Shen Yuchen has wielded significant military power for years. Recently, he has developed the intention to raise an army, rebel, and establish himself as emperor." I was stunned. What did this have to do with me going back? The system continued. "Host, your mission has changed. Originally, your goal was to help Shen Yuchen regain his Marquis title. Now he intends to seize the throne, so you must help him ascend smoothly. You haven't completed the mission, so you cannot leave this world." A chill crawled slowly up my spine. Why should I help him? Why fight? The world was peaceful. The emperor had reduced taxes, opened charity institutions, strengthen national stability. He was a wise ruler. Starting a war would only fill the land with corpses and suffering. I remembered the battlefield. Corpses like mountains, clay soaked red with the blood of commoners, bones left half buried in sand. The smell of rotting flesh beneath the scorching desert sun. I had once prayed for peace alongside Shen Yuchen. Why would he now choose bloodshed? The system sounded impatient with my questions. This is Shen Yuchen's wish. It is your mission. You should complete it. Besides, he was practically raised by you. If he becomes emperor, wouldn't you be proud? Even without feelings, the synthetic voice carried eagerness. Once he is sovereign, you will receive a noble title. Even if you don't return to your world, living in wealth here wouldn't be bad. I didn't answer. The system shifted tactics, its tone turning cold. In any case, if you want to go home, you must help Shen Yuchen ascend the throne. Protect him. Just like before, take arrows, bleed, and ensure his success. My eyes drifted to the leg I had broken from the well. Was I destined to sacrifice my body forever? The system didn't wait for my response. I believed I would obey. But a terrifying realization blossomed in my heart. Even if Shen Yuchen became emperor, could I really go home? The system had always dangled going home as bait. First, it said if I helped him become Marquis, I could go back. When the task was done, it disappeared. Second, it said if he married someone else, I could go back. I willingly demoted myself to concubine. When it happened, I still couldn't leave. Now it said to help him seize the throne. Would it truly end there? A cold clarity broke through my heart. This system had never helped me. It served only Shen Yuchen. It didn't send me here because of fate. It trafficked me here because he needed someone to carve his path. What if even after he became emperor, it found another excuse? Host, he wants a son. Bear him a child and you can go home. Host, he wants a prince. Give birth and raise him first. Host, he wants the child educated. Teach him yourself. And on, endlessly binding me to him. Using going home as a leash. I clenched my fists. A system that binds me without consent is a rogue. How could I ever trust a rogue to set me free? The only one who could save me was me. Dawn crept over the horizon, soft and pale. The red plum blossoms bloomed quietly outside my window. As I watched them sway, I finally understood. To go home, I cannot rely on the system. I must break free myself. Shen Yuchen was in high spirits lately, reveling in plans no one else knew. Because of my broken leg, he spent his days resting in Su Jingyao's room. Yet he still came to see me, hovering like guilt wearing the face of tenderness. After more than a month, I could already walk. With the new year approaching, I cut paper window decorations while casually chatting with him. He leaned against the doorway, watching as I trimmed the red paper. I commented lightly, I heard from the gatekeeper that this year many people are coming to the Marquis residence to deliver New Year gifts. They must be quite valuable. Shen Yuchen lifted his chin proudly. In recent years, I've gained some prestige in court. Even the army from the western state sent heavy gifts. I heard several fast horses died from exhaustion. I set aside the scissors and smoothed my hair. Marquis, come see if these silver hairpins look pretty. Chow insisted on putting them on me, but my head feels unbearably heavy. He laughed. Just a few pieces of jewelry and you think they're heavy? What if you become a noble consort in the future? A noble consort? I looked at myself in the bronze mirror, frowning slightly. Is the Marquis tired of me and intends to send me into the palace? But I've never heard of the emperor favoring a woman who has been married twice. Shen Yuchen tapped my forehead gently with his finger. What are you saying? You and I have been through hardships together. How could I ever give you to another man? His tone was calm, confident, certain. Do you think I'll remain a mere Marquis all my life? There it was. His ambition, spoken aloud with the ease of breathing. I placed the cut paper decoration into his palm. Marquis, you are skilled in both literature and martial arts. Naturally, you would not be content under someone else. But if war breaks out again, who knows how many soldiers will die, and how many civilians will suffer? He chuckled lightly, as though speaking of something insignificant. Sacrifice is inevitable. For a general to succeed, many bones must wither. It is their fortune to shed blood for me. Throughout history, success always requires sacrifices. You don't need to worry. Just heal your leg and bear children for me. He truly believed I was a woman meant to remain in his inner chambers, obedient and devoted to his rise. He did not bother to hide his ambitions anymore. Soon meetings in the study grew frequent. Money flowed out of the residence in large batches, undoubtedly used to purchase military supplies. The system occasionally appeared, its voice gentle yet sinister. Host, the day of Shen Yuchen's uprising is near. Remember your mission. If you fail, you can never return to your world. I remained silent. The system was confident I would obey. But the path I chose would be my own. When the day of the spring hunt arrived, my leg had fully healed. Officials could bring their families along to accompany the emperor. Now that Su Jingyao had become the legitimate wife, she was naturally included. Rumor said she had prepared her attire meticulously, acting as if she were born for the role of a high-ranking madam. I served Shen Yuchen a bowl of sweet peach soup and handed it to him calmly. Marquis, I want to go too. My tone was light, even indifferent. For the past few weeks, I had been polite but distant. This small gesture of personal service was enough to make him feel flattered. Since bringing an additional concubine was insignificant, he readily agreed. After he left, Chow whispered excitedly, "Madam, are you finally planning to vie for favor?" Vying for favor? I smiled faintly. The system could not be trusted. I would carve out my own road home. I didn't go to the spring hunt for Shen Yuchen. I went to find Emperor Song Moyan. For several days I couldn't even catch a glimpse of him. The mountains were vast, the hunting grounds filled with nobles, and I had no opportunity to approach him. But I heard there were hot springs on the mountain, and that the emperor would occasionally go there for medicinal baths. So I climbed the mountain 3 times before dawn. The first day he wasn't there. The second day I found tracks but no people. On the third day, just as the sky began to brighten, I reached the springs again. Heavy mist curled like smoke above the water. The rocks were warm beneath my palms. Suddenly voices drifted from behind a cluster of trees. I followed the sound and froze. A man in a pale moon-white robe sat submerged in the steaming spring. His long black hair flowed into the water, a quiet elegance surrounding him. A eunuch stood beside the pool listening attentively. Even without seeing him before, I knew it was Emperor Song Moyan. I took 2 steps forward. Just as the eunuch spotted me, his expression changed drastically. "Assassin! Guards, protect His Majesty!" His voice cut through the steam like a blade. I dropped to my knees immediately, my voice clear. "I am not an assassin." Before the guards could arrive, Song Moyan raised a hand gently. "I recognize her," he said. The eunuch froze, stunned. Song Moyan gazed at me calmly, his voice warm yet steady. "She is Lin Wanyu from the Marquis of Shan's household." For the first time in years I felt the slow stirring of hope. At the edge of that quiet spring I bowed deeply. "I came to find your Majesty." His gaze sharpened slightly. Then softly he asked, "What do you wish to tell me?" The mountains were quiet, and the steam from the spring curled around us like clouds. Song Moyan watched me steadily. His voice was gentle, but it carried the weight of the throne. "What do you wish to tell me, Miss Lin?" I walked step by step to the edge of the water, cupped my hands and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I came to report treason." The words echoed against the rocks like a cold wind. The eunuch's eyes widened. Song Moyan sat motionless. "Whose treason?" I looked straight at him, my answer clear. "Marquis Shen intends to rebel." Suddenly the system shrieked in my mind. "Host, what are you doing? Shut up. Don't you want to go home?" Its voice scraped against my thoughts like rusted metal, frantic, furious. I ignored it. My fingers tightened around a letter I had hidden in my sleeve. I drew it out and handed it to Song Moyan. He took it with his pale, elegant hand, opened it and read. His expression didn't change. Only his gaze deepened. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Does a woman by his side deliver him to death?" Steam rose around him like a veil. "If he succeeds, your status and wealth would change drastically. Do you not hope for that?" The system screamed louder. "Say you're lying. Say it now. If you ruin the plan, you will never return." But the hot spring was silent, and the mountains heard only truth. I shook my head slowly. I do not wish to see a war erupt without cause. The people have finally gained peace. Why should they suffer for his selfish ambition? Song Moyen stared at me for a long time. Then, softly, almost sorrowfully, he asked, "So what do you seek?" I bowed my head. "For peace." The system howled. "Peace? Are you insane? If he dies, you lose your only way home. You'll be trapped here forever." But I no longer believed its promises. Song Moyen finally sighed. "Then, Miss Lin, your righteousness is admirable." He stood from the spring, water dripping like liquid moonlight from his sleeves. "Leave the mountain first. I will take care of this matter." A snowflake drifted down from the sky as he handed me a fur cloak. "Wear this. Do not catch cold on the journey down." Behind his calm tone, history began to shift. And I, no longer a pawn of the system, took my first step toward freedom. Snow began to fall as I descended the mountain, clutching the fox fur cloak Emperor Song Moyen had given me. The misty hot springs disappeared behind the pines, and with every step, I felt a cold beyond the winter air. Not the chill of weather, but the chill of a trap I had just broken. The system, usually cold and mechanical, now roared in panic. "Are you out of your mind? You just destroyed everything. How can you go home now?" I brushed snow from my sleeve and kept walking. If completing the task could really take me home, I whispered under my breath, I would have returned years ago. The system screeched. "Ungrateful. You only exist because I bound you. Your parents are almost in despair. Don't you want to go back to them?" I stopped in the middle of the mountain road, snowflakes melting on my lashes. My voice shook, not with fear but with anger. "If you care about my parents, why send me here? Why force me to bleed, starve, and nearly die for someone I never owed anything to?" Silence. Then the system's tone turned cold and venomous. "If you don't complete the mission, you will die here. You deserve to stay in ancient times forever. Filial, you're nothing but a disobedient fool." A laugh slipped out of me. It sounded brittle against the snow. "Threats again? If you could kill me, you would have done it the moment I exposed Shin Yuchen." The system froze. I had struck the truth. "If you could erase me, you would have erased me already. You need me." The system lowered its voice, trembling with rage. "You'll regret this. Without Shin Yuchen, you are nothing. Without me, you are nothing." I continued down the mountain, boots sinking into snow. "No," I whispered, finally free of illusions. "Without you, I am finally myself." The system went silent. Not obedient, but cornered. When I returned to the Marquis' residence, Su Jingyao and the old lady busied themselves with schemes. A woman who claimed she didn't have much time left now seemed more lively than a spring blossom. Let them scheme. I no longer needed to resist them. I had already torn down the mountain. I had delivered the truth to the throne. Everything else would fall on its own. The Marquis' residence buzzed like a disturbed hive. Su Jingyao, who once pretended to be weak and dying, now fluttered about with color in her cheeks, whispering into the old lady's ear. They believed Shin Yuchen spent last night with me and had grown jealous. They thought I was competing for favor. If only they knew, none of this mattered anymore. Shin Yuchen, meanwhile, frequently disappeared from home. His feverish ambition kept him restless. He believed he was building an empire, unaware of the empire watching him. Then the storm broke. On March 3rd, the commander of the Imperial Guard suddenly died from drinking too much. The news spread fast, but no one wept. The same day, Emperor Song Moyen summoned Shin Yuchen to the palace to discuss state affairs. Shin Yuchen did not return that night. The household panicked. Su Jingyao stormed into my courtyard, her voice trembling with rage. "Where is the Marquis? Will you pretend ignorance?" I simply dropped my gaze and sipped tea. Her fury grew, but before she could continue, the sound of boots shook the front gates. The emperor's soldiers surrounded the residence. Steel flashed in the lantern light. Servants fled, screaming. I stood still. Hidden letters were found in a secret compartment in Shin Yuchen's study. Each document bore evidence of conspiracy. Military purchases, coded communication, a plan to strike on the emperor's birthday. That same day, the Northwest Army's command changed. The new commander was Emperor Song Moyen's cousin. The news tightened from every direction. Shin Yuchen, Su Jingyao, the old lady, and their close relatives were all thrown into the imperial prison on charges of treason. Except for me. The next morning, a decree arrived with a red imperial seal. Lin Wanyu is no longer the Marquis' concubine. She bears no ties, responsibility, or guilt with the Shen family. I accepted the decree with steady hands, the silk tassel brushing my fingertips like wind. I remembered carrying him across dunes under a scorching sun. I remembered bleeding to save him. I remembered him saying, "Sister, I will protect you forever in this life." Now I stood alone yet freer than ever. But I had one last matter left. The Marquis' estate had been confiscated. Buried among its assets were 364 taels of silver I once earned, silver I had meant to donate to a refuge for women and children. I walked into the palace. "Your Majesty," I said calmly, "that money was meant for charity before Shen Yuchen seized it." Song Moyan understood. A small smile touched his lips. "I will return it to its intended home." Then he looked at me thoughtfully. "You have done a great service. Is there a reward you desire?" My answer came without thinking. "To go home." He hesitated, unable to understand why I would say such a thing. He couldn't send me back, so I said nothing more. But then he added carefully, "Shen Yuchen woke today. He demanded to see you." He was muttering something about a system. The word struck me like a bell. A system. He knows. I met Song Moyan's eyes and nodded. "Then I will go see him." The imperial prison smelled of damp stone and old iron. Torches flickered against the walls, throwing stretched shadows across the floor. Shen Yuchen was no longer the polished Marquis the capital revered. His hair hung loose, his clothes torn, and his eyes, once bright with ambition, were clouded with hatred and something darker. When he saw me, he stood abruptly, gripping the iron bars so hard his knuckles turned bone-white. "Lin Wanyu," he rasped, voice grinding, "you never truly cared for me." His words were sharpened by bitterness and betrayal. "I had a dream. I learned everything," he continued, teeth clenched. "You only took me in to go home. Your kindness was nothing but a scheme." He spat the words like venom. "You deceiver. You tricked my feelings from the very start." I stared at him silently. How ridiculous. When I saved him, I was only 18. I had no knowledge of systems, missions, or destiny. I sheltered him because he was freezing and starving, fed him because he was human, loved him because he had once been kind. But he had worn down my care, then stepped on my sincerity. These truths belonged only to me now. I didn't waste breath explaining them. Then his expression twisted. His voice dropped to a disturbing whisper. "In my dream, after I die, you go home." My heart thudded once painfully. "But do you think you will get that chance?" He snarled, laughter breaking like shattered glass. "You can't. Because I won't die." I stepped closer to the bars. "What do you mean?" Shen Yuchen's eyes glimmered with sick triumph. When Song Moyan questioned me, I told him everything. I told him about the system. I told him that if I die, Lin Wanyu will vanish from this world and return to her original time. My blood ran cold. He can choose not to kill me, just imprison me for life, and he will be praised as merciful. And you? He leaned forward, lips curling. You will never go home. My pulse thundered. So that was his final revenge. I summoned the system silently. Was it you who told him? The reply came slowly, shamelessly. Yes. I must preserve his life. My fingers tightened. Cold, fierce clarity washed over me. You are shameless. The system sneered back. You should be grateful I haven't erased you. I turned toward Shen Yuchen. He smirked proudly, believing he had caged me forever. I raised my hand and slapped him. The sound cracked through the prison air. His eyes widened. You and the system, I said quietly, are the same. Filthy. Despicable. And I walked out. Outside the prison doors, the sunlight was blinding. I didn't know what Emperor Song Moyan would choose. But his decision would decide whether I remained trapped forever, or truly returned home. One thing was certain. I would never again be a pawn to a man, or to a system. When I stepped out of the prison, the sunlight stabbed my eyes. For a moment everything blurred, the cold walls, the heavy iron gates, Shen Yuchen's twisted smile echoing behind me like a curse. Would Emperor Song Moyan spare him? If he did, I would be forever trapped in this era. Just as the thought gripped me, swift footsteps approached. A eunuch held a scroll high with trembling hands. An urgent imperial decree. The escort guards knelt, and the decree was read aloud. The Marquis Shen is guilty of treason. He shall be executed at the noon gate in 3 days. My heart slammed against my ribs. 3 days. 3 days until his head fell. 3 days until the last chain binding me broke. I turned, startled, because not far away on the palace steps stood Song Moyen himself. He wasn't smiling as an emperor. He was smiling as someone who understood. When our eyes met, his lips moved silently. Go home. Whether he saw through the system or merely trusted me, his judgment cut through every trap. The day before Shen Yuchen's execution, I returned to the palace. Song Moyen had prepared 2 large bundles for me. One held pastries and snacks. The other jewelry, hairpins, accessories of high quality. Stunned, I asked, "What is His Majesty doing?" He replied lightly, "Miss Lin wishes to travel far. It is necessary to have food and travel expenses." Travel. He thought I could go somewhere here in this world. But I didn't correct him. Among the jewels, my eyes caught numerous ivory hairpins. Their pale shine reminded me of a long-forgotten promise, of bitterness already laid to rest. Song Moyen spoke again, softly. "Miss Lin, you are a good person. Do not let the past trouble you. On the other side of the world, may everything go well for you." I bowed. "And may your Majesty live a long and peaceful life." Tomorrow Shen Yuchen would be executed. Tomorrow everything might change. Would the system truly release me? Or would it abandon me again? For the first time, I wasn't afraid. Because I finally had control. Not the system, not fate, not a man. Just me. The morning of the execution dawned gray. I sat alone in a private room of a small tavern near the noon gate, sipping tea. Outside, the drums sounded, steady, heavy, merciless. Soldiers shouted commands. A crowd gathered, whispering, cursing, gawking. The man once praised as a war hero, surrounded by officials and nobles. Today he was just a criminal. I didn't go to watch. I didn't need to. The sound of the executioner spraying wine over the blade echoed faintly through the thin walls. The wine cleansed blood, but it couldn't cleanse sins. The crowd roared. The blade fell. The deafening silence afterward felt endless. Then finally, like a phone being powered down, beep, a weak electronic voice whispered in my mind. Toast, crackled, breaking apart like static. Mission completed. Then, shut down. Silence. A quiet, profound silence I had waited 10 years to hear. My body felt suddenly weightless, as though something invisible had detached itself from me. The system was gone. Shen Yuchen's lifelong desire was gone. I was free. 10 years in ancient times. 10 years of fighting, bleeding, enduring. I once crossed deserts to save him. I once fed him with my blood. I once believed sincerity could not be mistaken. In the end, I delivered the man I protected to execution with my own hands. Not out of vengeance. Out of choice. Out of freedom. One cannot trust fate. One cannot trust a system. In the end, only I could save myself. White light blurred my vision. My body felt as though I were being lifted upward, weightless, floating without air or sound. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, yet I wasn't afraid. Somewhere far away, a voice cried. Not the system, not anyone from ancient times. It was my mother. I opened my eyes. Fluorescent lights. White walls. The sterile scent of disinfectant. I was lying on a hospital bed in the 21st century. Warm arms wrapped around me, my mother sobbing uncontrollably. My father, usually stern as iron, was shaking, gripping my hand as if I might disappear again. "Where did you go?" My mother choked. My throat tightened. I couldn't explain 10 years of blood, war, betrayal, and survival. I couldn't tell them about arrow wounds or desert sands, or how I jumped into a dry well to escape a lifetime of being owned. So I simply whispered, "I'm home." After the tears and chaos settled, I showed my parents the bundles of items I had carried back. Hairpins, jewelry, ivory ornaments. My mother gasped. These must be worth a fortune, so beautifully made. Then my father frowned, pointing at one object that looked out of place. A small, slightly rough, fine-toothed peachwood comb. "This one looks cheap." Why bother bringing it? It really did look plain beside the ivory hairpins. Not refined like palace crafts. Not expensive like the others. The bottom was carved with a single small character. Yun. I stared at it for a long moment. Not because I still loved Shin Yu-chen, but because this single handmade comb was the proof that every choice was mine. It was the comb I carved with wounded hands on the eve of our marriage. A reminder of who I used to be. A reminder of who I became. A reminder that I survived. I put it away carefully, not as an attachment, but as evidence that I will never again live for someone else's fate. 10 years stolen. But the rest of my life? It belongs to me. Finally. Completely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for watching and staying with this story till the end. If you felt Wanyu's pain, her courage, and that final moment she chose herself, let me know in the comments. What would you have done in her place? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Your support keeps these tales alive.